And so just to get a sense, and we're going to introduce ourselves, how many people have been here for every session in this? Gotcha. So how many people were here 2 weeks ago? I was here with Sarah, who's a young woman who left Children's Aid and came into Developmental Services. So we don't need to go over a whole lot of the other stuff. Peter and I are both involved with Arch Disability Law Center, the legal aid clinic for disability services. We'll talk a little kind of bit about respecting rights. So how many people are familiar with Arch? Yeah, Peter's laughing at me. Yeah, so just in case you're not, in case you were here before, Arch, and so again, it's a legal aid clinic. There's information in your packages. It's a legal aid clinic that is free for people with disabilities. When it comes to discrimination,
free rather than costing people money offers for nothing.
yeah, it can be very helpful. So we'll talk a little tiny bit more about that. Respecting rights, just to give you a little bit of information, you've got our contact information again. This is a committee that's been founded. Peter Park was one of the people who founded it, along with myself and some of the lawyers from Arch Disability Law, and it's a committee which is committed to engaging in human rights education for the intellectual disability world across the province. And what we do is we deliver workshops. Sorry, I can't see some of you. Hopefully you can see. Okay. We deliver workshops on rights education for people with intellectual disabilities, for staff, and for family members. I want to talk a little tiny bit about this image.
Oh, true. Old age ain't for sissies. Okay. When I was 65, I thought, well, okay. And then all of a sudden, everything. I went to see more doctors, more of this, more of that. But I've maintained that I've been healthy, relatively healthy.
Knock on wood, everybody.
Yeah, since I had, I say watch myself, what I ate, and so forth.
What year was your heart attack again?
That,
How many years ago?
that was June of 2007. So that gives you an idea of how long ago and how much I have looked at my diet since then. I used to do all sorts of stuff. Now I eat more the way I should, and exercise. Exercise doesn't work for me. I could eat all properly, much I wanted to, but good exercise doesn't help.
I can vouch for that because Peter and I, at a lot of the meetings that we have together, we meet a lot together, and a lot of the meetings involve food. And so in the earlier days, maybe about 8 or 9 years ago when we first started meeting, I remember that there would be a glass of wine involved. And not quite so much anymore. Occasionally. I think I gave you a bottle of wine and sat in your kitchen for a year or two.
No, right now I got all the champagne sitting in the kitchen. And, the person that gave it to me said, "Why is that sitting there?" And I said, "Good. That's sitting there for my 100th birthday." Now, a little bit about my life. I imagine everybody in here knows me, but I imagine there's some new one. I was in Oxford Regional Center from the age of 20 to 38. Well, those are the good years when people get married, go to college, learn to drive, and all those fun things. Well, I didn't get to do any of them. When I got out of that institution, I decided, well, I'm about this was the morning. I was just turned 40. I was sitting on my veranda and I said, I'll never get married. I'm 40. Well, that afternoon, I met my wife to be. And now, I would say it's been wonderful. I wouldn't have been marvelous, changed my whole life.
And we have a short video you're going to see about some of the changes that Peter's made.
As you can see, I've always been concerned about social justice.
Two. Peter, I don't mean to interrupt, but people are having a hard time hearing you. So what can we do to make it louder?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So that's,
Okay.
do you want to
Now,
hold it? That's right. Perfect timing, Jen. Great, Jason, you get us.
We want to hear what you have to say, so we want to make sure it's nice.
Now, can you hear?
Yeah.
I can maneuver it.
All right, good.
This is to tell you that you don't have to be young to be a positive advocate. I remember when I was in the institution, I was told I had no rights. I was there for 18 years, from the age of 20 to 38. We were used as human guinea pigs when it came to taking medication. I often refused to take some of this medication because it wasn't in the two manuals that my father had given me. When I refused, I was put in D ward or detention ward. In D ward, it was moved completely bare, as was the room that you were put in. I was bound and bad that I wanted to live the same life as my brother and sister. They both had lives in the community, and so I wanted to live in the community. I had gotten an apartment, and I said, I want to get married. I was told I don't have the right to get married because I have an intellectual disability. I was also told that I couldn't get married because I was in an association. Okay, let's have a celebration and I'll leave the association because I do want to get married. This is an example of all the horrible stuff I've had to fight for, all to achieve my own rights. People first has given me the right to travel. It's taken me to places like India and New Zealand. People first is teaching about rights. Everyone, no matter how old, have rights. even though I'm older, I have the right to control my life. I do things as I wish. Community is where the action is. Remember, positive change comes very slowly. But you don't think, sure it'll happen.
You know what it's like living in an institution if you've been there, but you are there now, the institution of marriage.
Well, there's one slide that a lot of people like that didn't know what the heck it was. I know because but it's very important to me. That was a June Colwood Award for volunteer achievement. There are only 19 of them given out each year across Ontario. And while June Colwood was a great social advocate to start with, the I don't know how many social movements. And well, the one that definitely comes to mind is Casey House.
Bit of an honor of a lifetime to receive that award, eh?
Yes.
Let's see here. Okay, so why don't you talk a little tiny bit for folks about planning your own circle, planning for aging.
Okay. When as it said, when I was about 56, I thought, not only I thought, but in conversation with my wife, thought that we needed a bunch of people around us to help us think things through. Well, we found out it's called a circle. We've asked the opinion of those people, but if we didn't agree with what they said, we didn't have to take it. My wife and I were the ones that had the final say in the matter, whatever it be. I'll give you an example. He thought we wanted to move, wanted to have a house. Well, one of the members said, you don't want to move. You've got a great thing here. What you want to do is house sit. And she was right. House sit is what we have done. And it takes us all over, but you don't have to end up paying taxes and all the fun things that are involved in the house.
Do you want to talk a little tiny bit, because people would know about the co-op setting you live in?
Oh, well, in a co-op, it's people who live there are some on social assistance. There are some, like a friend of ours that lives down the hallway is a financial advisor, but she's definitely not on social assistance. So there's everybody, great mix of people that get along together and share each other's joy and, okay, the not so good things in life. But we have, on special days like Christmas, or we all have a party and get together and we may even just spontaneously say, okay, let's have a meal and everybody contribute. We have a wonderful side.
There's that sense of belonging, and it's a pretty amazing community when you walk in and you get off on the floor where Peter and Rhea's apartment is. You walk right out of the elevator and there's a huge collage of all the members of the co-op, and Peter and Rhea are in the center of a lot of those pictures. You guys are very, very involved.
Yeah, very involved in the community.
And so again, the circle, and I mentioned when I was here a couple of weeks ago, somebody was talking about family. They were talking about family's involvement. And Peter was one of the first people who taught me, you know, we got to be really careful about this term family, because a lot of people don't have family, or often family are imposing decision-making. And with the work that Peter's been doing with ART, with respecting rights, people first, the huge message, the central message is the person with the disability has the right to make their own decisions, right? Do you want to talk a little tiny bit, because I think you talked a little bit about times when you've been in hospital, and we talk about family. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, since I don't have any biological family, well, I have biological family, but lives in Phoenix, Arizona, so that's a little far to come when I had a heart attack. So, to me, people, or some of the people that make up my circle, well, they're made up of friends whom I trust and whom I've chosen, whom we've chosen. But they've been given the power of attorney for us. And that's the first thing a hospital will have. Who has power of attorney? This person was able to show mind you, I have all that information documented in a binder if anybody needs it. And so, was there not a picture of that? Now that
Yes. Yes, yeah, Peter can point, and everyone in your circle knows where the book is, right?
Oh, yeah.
Peter, in his apartment, who here can point to the place in their home where all of your plans for the future, including your funeral, are written down? Who's got that documented? Right? Okay, one person in the back, and Peter, right? Okay, way to go. Advanced plan. Oh, and Jen. Okay. But again, the point is that especially with someone with a disability, helping them be in the driver's seat to make decisions, and helping them be in the driver's seat to make decisions for the future, right? So we're going to talk a little bit more about planning.
That's what I call the honest talks about the hard stuff, because the first thing the Civil War do some fun stuff. And that was the other people in the circle. And since Rhea and I are the center, no, we want to talk about our funeral, period. That was, so now we have, we talked about the funeral, where it's going to be, what music is going to be played, whether we're going to be cremated, whether there's going to be a viewing, you name it, the whole bit. We've also, well, as I said, we have a book with everything in it, even right down to what doctor, medical doctor, lists everything, so that people don't, when we die, all they have to do is look for this red book. They don't have to look elsewhere for 101 different things and lose their hair like I have. Looking for stuff. Well, what happened was a very good friend on the circle lost his father, and he was saying he had to look everywhere, but they get different things together. And so that made us think, let's put it together so that nobody needs to go through that. So we put it together so that no one needs to look through all that.
Who here has been in a position in their work where they've had to provide support in funeral planning. Can you put your hand way up? Funeral planning, interesting. And who here has had to do that in their personal lives with family members? Yeah, so a lot of us have been involved in this, right? We're going to talk a little bit more. And then again, how many said that they've done their own funeral planning? Yeah. You and, I think it's Deanna and Peter. Okay, so now we're going to talk about your funeral. We would like you to get a piece of paper. Does everybody have something they can write on? Just take a couple minutes to go over that at your tables, thinking about those important questions, and we'll ask people to call out some of the important things, what's really important to you. Who's got something burning? Who's got a really interesting response? And Trisha's got a microphone. She's going to come around. So what we want to hear is, what are some of the choices that you made, and what surprised you when you thought about your own funeral? Who wants to put their hand up? Trisha and Deanna will come around.
I was just saying that although I have everything planned, I have a will and I have a son, so I've got plans for him and what to do if I end up on life support, some of those major decisions. Yeah. I don't have specifics like the questions you're asking, Peter. And that's interesting for me because some of those things are really important. So I think we kind of make big plans about things, but we forget some of the kind of more important things that make us who we are, right? So that was helpful for me.
What song, Jen?
Well, I'm a believer, so I'm gonna have Justin Bieber for sure. We're also just talking about how things will change. Like if I were to die soon, I would want a certain type of music. If I were to die in 40 years, I might have different music that I want to play. So, although Deanna says she's going to play Justin Bieber no matter what.
So. We'll talk a little bit about the law and advanced planning and what the law says around writing down your last wishes. So we're going to talk about that in a minute because oral wishes actually hold water also. The more recent oral wishes. So even, Jen, if you change your mind and you don't want Justin Bieber, but you'd rather have Don Ross or somebody.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if you verbalize that, anyway, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Anybody else want to share anything else that surprised you? Yeah, way over here. And so Glenn and Caroline. So Deanna's over there with Glenn and Trisha's over here with Caroline.
I think I would want to have just all 80s music.
Oh, Debbie. Sorry, Debbie.
Yeah, all 80s music played. Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. And I don't think that's ever going to change, no matter what age I am.
So and it's one of those important things, right? That if you didn't make those decisions for yourself now, somebody may have played something you really don't like, right?
Yeah. And I think it's a good point what Jennifer was talking about because I never thought of some of these things like, me and my husband did our wills because again, we have a son and we've done all of our planning. But these questions, I haven't really addressed. Right? And I think it's a good thing to look at that and address those because, like as I say, I want my 80s music, and I told my husband already I want to be buried with all my shoes, but I don't know how that's
And then, so Trisha, and so I think Glenn, and then over there Caroline wanted to add also. It's so important, these things. I did, in addition to a number of the other things I worked on, part of my, when I was finishing up my schooling, my final practicums were in long-term care and hospital settings. And I had the opportunity to work with people at end of life, making their own decisions. And the interesting thing is, even the doctors, even at Princess Margaret Hospital, the doctors were, and Angie, wherever you are, you might agree with this or maybe not, but I noticed doctors were even scared to have those conversations sometimes with patients about what they wanted to see. And they didn't want to talk about advanced planning at all. So much gets avoided. One of my final practicums in my social work degree was at a long-term care facility, and there was a woman who came in, And she was quite young to be in long-term care. She was in her early 70s, but she had had a very bad fall. She was living by herself. She'd had a very bad fall, broke her hip. The only family member was a son, and they had a horrible relationship. So because she had not done any advanced planning, he was phoned when she ended up first in emergency, and then they said she's not fit to live on her own. What are we going to do? They go down that substitute decision makers hierarchy that we'll talk about in a minute. So her son's called. He comes in, makes decisions. He goes in, sells her house. She doesn't even get to go back to look at her house to choose what she wanted. This woman had worked as a cleaning lady, a cleaning person for a period of time. And her son went in, hadn't seen her in 10 years. He went in and he grabbed a couple dresses, because she was only allowed to have a few items in long-term care. Grabbed a couple dresses that happened to be the dresses she wore for her cleaning job. And that was all the clothes she was left at the end of her life in long-term care. So, important to make these decisions.
Well, my own mom, which was in long-term care, it was a positive experience. She was 2 doors away from her home, and she used to have a key to her home, go home at 4 o'clock every day, make herself a cup of tea, and then she'd go back to the long-term care home.
Yeah, it's important a cup of tea at home is, right? And I think Tricia, yeah, Glenn.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Just another thought is that's how these not having the conversation often, I think, relates to our own discomfort. Preaching that topic with people and helping them to make these important plans. When I'm thinking of myself, the only one that is really, I found, of importance is number 5, the photos of your life. You know, and for me it would be family, children, and that kind of stuff. And just with so many people that we support don't have that. And just the important, we had a talk the other day with Richard, he was talking about the dash. Sort of on your tombstone is the date that you're born, the date that you die, and just the importance of the dash, that life, and capturing that and having that rich and full and what's important. And again, just focusing on that when we're working with people, making those plans, trying to make those connections with people so that, you know, they do have something, or number 5, and the others too.
So meaningful, if everybody's catching what Glenn's saying, that dash in between the numbers, how important to try and bring some thought, bring some meaning, bring some impact on what people want to bring. That's beautiful. Thank you for thinking of that. It's beautiful. Yeah. And I think over here, so Caroline and Petra. Can you imagine that one photograph that somebody captured when you're at your moment where you feel like you look your worst, and that's the photograph that they find and they put up. That goes in your obituary, right?
I'm glad you said about oral being a binding. Besides the oral things that I express, what I find to be a struggle is a cross between what my culture says is the way to conduct the proper funeral and what I want. So if I did not itemize what I wanted, then it would happen the way it's supposed to be culturally, which is, for me, not the right way for me. So that's what I struggled with, sort of, when I was thinking about that. Because we don't cremate, but that's what I want. I want to be cremated, and it starts there, and there are no similarities. So I don't know what I would do.
You've got 100 witnesses here. Caroline wants to be cremated. But the importance of writing this down, and again, we're trying to get people to think about putting yourself in the shoes of the people that we support and how important it is to help them plan. And again, like Glenn said, it's important to talk about these things. And these are difficult conversations because we live in a death-denying culture, right? For Peter to say, we got to talk about planning funerals.
We usually think, oh, we're going to live forever. Well, I'm sorry, folks, we're going the wrong way.
Peter's wife, Rhea, when we were having this conversation recently, she said, you know what, you really have to plan for your funeral before you die, because you can't really do it after. But, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm saying flowers, freesia, it's for me kind of thing. And the other thing, I like your picture because from personal experience, your tombstone and stuff, you don't think about that till after, and they are very costly. You know, it's not, you know, depending on the cemetery too, sometimes you could make your own ahead of time, sort of thing. And also for the photos, and the late Keith Wilson, I remember his funeral. He was a photographer, so there was tons of pictures of his family because he was behind the camera. So remember that, you know, sometimes for those of you that are in that position, make sure there's some good ones of you. And also you were talking about the celebration, Peter. You know, I remember being at a viewing as well where the planning, the first record planning pieces, especially that part about all the person's qualities, were up on the wall with candles and flowers, so that, you know, you can use those, you know, to celebrate the person that.
Right, so using some of the work from the person-directed plan, and it's beautiful. Yeah, because you talk about qualities, you celebrate, yeah. Yeah, planning really brings out who the person is too, and it's a great way of looking at it.
Sorry, I just wanted to kind of say something quick about planning for funerals and for end of life, is that a lot of our individuals we work with don't have the opportunity to kind of talk about what that feels like for them. Like, I've worked with a lot of seniors or people at the end of their life with intellectual disabilities, and the thing, you know, we have our own values and what we see is important too, and I think we have to kind of take a moment and recognize that maybe religion isn't important to us, but that person, that is important to them, and that maybe, you know, at the end of their life, they want someone there to represent them from their church, or they might want even just, like I've read to people from passages from the Bible, which is not something that necessarily I would do or want for myself, but for that person, it's important for them at the end of their life to have that. And so I think sometimes we need to kind of take a step back and think, what does that person want, and have they, you know, looked at all the options that they could have.
It's so important too, so important. Yeah, it's not about us, we're planning for someone else, it's about their decisions.
I think, sorry, I also think that for most of the clients that we support, especially my caseload, most of them have illnesses that's already limiting them to do certain things. And some of them know that, you know, I may not live to 40 or 60. So just being sensitive to bring this topic to them is very important. That's for which I'm sure we all know, because sometimes the minute you open it up, then fear grips them. Like, have you read something in my medical chart? Is this the end for me? And that can cause unnecessary stress. So just kind of be mindful when is the right time to bring it. If they bring it, then that's an opportunity for us to keep building.
So important to your points. It's the other part of my my final thesis when I was doing my master's was around self-determination at end of life, and that is decision-making at end of life. One of the things that and I think it's still quite close, I heard a recent study, talks about the fact it's around 75% of Canadians choose, or would choose, this is in a survey that was done, to die at home. Around 75% of Canadians would choose to die in their home. The reality was around 71% died in the emergency room or the ICU. Because what happens is they haven't done that advanced planning, and then at the very last minute, something happens and everybody's struggling because they haven't planned and set out their wishes, and they're taken into hospital, and the hospital has to do every last thing to try and keep them alive because they haven't set out their plans that they don't want to be resuscitated, that they want to die. So if they're in that state and they end up dying with all the bells and lights and emergency procedures trying to keep them alive, with all the bells and whistles and the chaos of an emergency room going on. And that's unfortunately how many Canadians die when really they wanted to die at home, but they hadn't done the planning. And the other factor for that is gross overcost. It's extremely expensive for the healthcare system because we're doing all those procedures, all those medical procedures to try and save their lives. Maybe Angie can talk about that later.
Can I read?
Oh yeah, one more. Yes, please. Yeah. counting those steps.
Sorry, maybe I'll ask my colleagues to help me on this. But I work in the shelter system, and from that context, I guess it's a little bit different doing this transitional planning with our clients. Usually when the initial intake, one of the questions that we ask the clients, and these are clients that we don't know, if anything happens to you, sir, is there someone that you'd like us to call? And sometimes that's as far as it goes, depending on how long they stay with us, and even when we've developed a relationship with them, if they've stayed for a longer period, sometimes it's a very difficult topic to broach, because many of them are separated from families. They're there for various reasons. So I don't even know what I guess for me, I refrain from talking about it because I'm comfortable for me, period. At this point, I think one day I will. But it just brought me back to my clients, our clients in the shelter system.
And thank you.
How about if an older person comes in the shelter system? Would you be more willing to address that? Like if you know the medical issues and was in their life?
Sorry.
I think he said, how about an older person who comes into the shelter system?
And he's correct, and so that's something usually the caseworker will broach with them. And oftentimes it's a difficult, because I've filled that role as well. Oftentimes it's a difficult subject to broach.
And again, all of these things, the principle of the Respecting Rights Committee and what Peter and I, the work we're trying to say is everyone has the right to make their own decisions. So even those people have the right to be involved in this planning. One of my first placements when I was a young pup in social work training was at a place that unfortunately lost its funding. It was called White Light Hospice, which then changed over to Parham House Hospice, since lost its funding. But it was a hospice for the homeless. And they used to be connected with Wellesley Hospital, with the old Wellesley Hospital. And people who were homeless and had a terminal illness came here. It was one of the most exciting placements I've ever done. A lot of the people had pretty severe addiction issues. That was back in the day you could smoke inside buildings, and I'll never forget the hours I spent. The smoking room was as big as this little stage Peter and I are standing on, and the majority of clients who were there smoked, even in their end days. Many of them had lung cancer, had Hep C, had very involved, they were coughing blood, and we would be in there in these rooms with them, supporting them, and helping them reach out to family who they had been alienated from because of mental health, because of addiction, and helping them bridge that gap. So we had those really difficult conversations, like Peter's saying, it's the difficult stuff, right? So there was somebody, the only belonging this man had in his entire life was this old tape deck, like a ghetto blaster, and all the, I think the rewind button was broken. This is what he was leaving for his daughter, who he had sexually abused for years and years and was totally estranged, and he wanted to reach out and bridge that. So we arranged for her to come, and they connected. She got this old tape deck, and they had conversations, and he died shortly after that. But everyone has the right to put closure to their life, right? And you're in a very difficult place, and maybe you can go do some culture change in the shelter system, saying we've got to help people plan, right? Thanks for bringing that up. It's a big one. Anything else? I don't know. Here?
We do have one comment here.
Oh, yes, please.
Can I just add something to that last piece about the shelter system? It's in theory.
You need a mic. Hang on.
In theory, it's great to broach those subjects and have those conversations, especially with the older men in the shelter system. But what's challenging is when it comes down to it, they have no money, zero money. So we broach these subjects with them.
Yep.
What would you like to see? But then at the end of the day, there's no money to pay for it. They have estranged from all their families. We've maybe attempted to try to bridge some of those gaps, but at the end, I'd say 8 out of 10 of them, that never happens. That connection, reconnection never happens. And so it's difficult because we ask them, what would you like to see? But then they don't have any money. So it's sort of hard.
So I was just writing down some notes. In this discussion of the substitute decision maker and what we plan to have, we do have one program manager that works at a particular home where there's most of the clients are aging. They're between say 50 and 74. The oldest is 74. And so for those clients, they're nonverbal. They're unable to communicate, so they can't really discuss those needs. So I guess my question then is, what we have to do is figure out how to go about their planning. As the association, we do struggle with that. I don't know if there's any feedback or ideas that you have that you can share with us to help facilitate that.
Those are two amazing questions.
Okay. Now, a friend of ours is also nonverbal. Because he communicates in a way that different people around him understand. He's made a will, gone through all the funeral planning, and made his wishes known to people around him. But that's only one individual in 1,000, one that I happen to be aware of.
Yeah, no, it's an excellent question, and I think we'll come back to some discussion on this, okay? And it's back to that, how do we uphold the rights and do planning and provide support for people who use alternative means of communication, and make sure that we really know their wishes. So let's go back to that one. I just took a peek at the time. Peter's on a plane to Winnipeg in a little while. So we're going to continue this discussion as he's flying out to...
Peter is keeping track too.
So we'll come back to it because we have a couple more slides we want to get to, then we'll continue the discussion. And around the finances, exactly. At the hospice for the homeless, we had all of the funerals were held at Jeepers, what's the name of the funeral home that's there on Jarvis, down in the, right? You know what the one, right? And they knew us well, and right? And there was often the only people who were there were the staff. Sorry?
Rosar Morrison.
Precisely, Rosar Morrison, right? And they're basically welfare funerals, right? Yeah. So let's go back to that, and then we're going to come back to the planning. So as you can see, Peter's encouraging everyone to sort of think about these things. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the celebratory nature of?
Well, I'm a big one. Both my wife and myself are ready to celebrate or have a party. We don't want any doom and gloom in this affair. We want people to recognize us as, okay, we want to come and celebrate with us. Remember us as party people. That's why I say positive. We want to celebrate the positive things in our life, not doom and gloom.
Exactly, and like Glenn said, let's go out of our way to find out what that is for the people we support. So again, to sort of look at a little bit of this, I think everyone's getting our message. You have the right to make decisions all the way to the end of your life. You start planning now, and who you want to help make decisions for you, regardless of where you're at, who you are. If you're in the shelter system, if
you don't start now, it'll never happen.
Yeah. So we can go back to a little bit of this. You have handouts on it, but I just do want to touch. So there's a few different laws that govern decision making, and I think that a lot of people in the room are becoming quite familiar with them. Those of you who are supporting people who are toward the end of their life. So another piece I want to just ask those of you supporting someone in long-term care. I don't know if it's every single long-term care facility, but when the person was admitted into long-term care, was part of the intake package a capacity assessment. Can you put your hand up if that was an automatic thing, a capacity assessment for the person? Yeah. for some people, okay? So looking at, the Healthcare Consent Act, and there's loads of words in here, I apologize, there's a couple slides, Peter said, Sue, you can't put that many, and I said, no, this is from March, they want all the legal stuff in there. There's a couple of slides that talk about the Substitute Decision Makers Act hierarchy, the tree of decision making that the hospital will automatically go through. Like I said, the woman who ended up in long-term care, and they ended up just going through the hierarchy, and so they contacted her son, who she had a horrible relationship with, and he ended up making all those decisions about the last days of her life. Here's what we were talking about. So a person may express wishes about their future health care and a power of attorney for personal care. Remember, a power of attorney is not a person, it's a piece of paper. It has to be documented.
By the way, with power of attorney, a lot of people think it's got to be one person. No, we have our power of attorney is our circle. It's a whole bunch of people around us that know us and that we trust and respect.
A very important point. And so this other piece that we were just talking about, in case Jen doesn't want Justin Bieber later on, everyone here is going to think, we're going to Jen's funeral.
Now you made me think of Don Ross, though, so.
I know.
Thanks.
No, I know. I thought you had Don Ross, amazing guitar player, by the way. So in any written form, orally, or any other manner, later wishes expressed while capable prevail over earlier wishes. Even if they have been expressed in written form, the later oral wishes may override the earlier written wishes. So make sure that you're finding out what's important to the people that you support. Okay, so I think we've had the big takeaway, your capacity remains intact, okay? So just again, to look at the Substitute Decisions Act, another one of the laws that governs decision-making. A person is considered capable to make a decision if the person's able to understand the information that is relevant to making the decision, and the person is able to appreciate the potential consequences of making or not making the decision. And that remains intact. Just because you get older doesn't mean that goes away. So there's that big mouthful, okay? The hierarchy of SDMs, substitute decision makers. So here's what hospitals will naturally go through. So if a person arrives, they don't have anything written down, they don't have it documented who they want to make decisions if they are incapable. So the guardian, so that's a legal document. Attorney for personal care, like Peter's saying, can be a circle. A representative appointed by the Consent and Capacity Board, your spouse or your partner. So you get the idea. We won't go through all of it. You get the idea. You've got them in your package. This is the way healthcare works. That they go through this hierarchy. So you may decide who you may want as a future substitute decision maker. This can be done by confirming that you know who the person is in that hierarchy, and you're satisfied, or you can do what Peter's done, and you can prepare a power of attorney while you're capable, you want to make the decision. So somebody that you don't want making those decisions is in the driver's seat. My social life has really picked up lately with all these health clinic visits. So Peter wanted to talk about this one, right?
Yeah, like I'd never heard of podiatrist before. Now I gotta go to these guys. Boy, well, I go to general practitioners for doggone often that it's not even funny. So, well, I've always, being an epileptic, I've always done the neurologist, so it's not that new, but more often. Now, this was a new, very new one for me, cardiologist. After I had an heart attack, I found I have to go there quite often, just for a checkup. And last time was better than when I had a heart attack, he said. That was the way it worked. The dentist, well, I go to the dentist quite that now. It seems like it, anyhow. The optometrist? No. Seems that I just get a new pair of glasses one year, and next year I have my eyes just, I gotta get another pair of glasses.
And this again, just thinking back to what Peter talks about being in the institution where he was forced, or they tried forcing him and he refused. So they threw him in an isolation cell in D ward. Remembering that the person has the right to be involved in your healthcare decision making. And there's just that much more under Oldham. So again, Peter, do you want to talk a little tiny bit now, this is the closing statements, because we do want to get to your experience with complaining, with your experience with long-term care with Rhea. You want to talk about that?
Okay, way back when Rhea was on a short-term stay, or whatever they call it, 10 days in a long-term care home. And when she was released, she was released without any underwear on, completely swaddled. The feces running down her leg. It was so bad that I complained, but I didn't hear back from the home or the CCAC or whoever, CCAC I think it was. Didn't hear back from them until about 6 months later.
So it sort of reopens those wounds for people who are familiar with the institutional life and then suddenly revisiting institutions. And Peter, are you comfortable talking a little bit about Rhea? Because Peter is in a position, Peter and Rhea both live independently, but Peter provides a lot of support for his wife now. Do you want to talk a little tiny bit about that?
Okay,
This is part of the aging reality of couples, right?
One of the realities of life was that way back when, about 5, 6 years ago, anyway, 99. My wife was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Well, then in 2014, she had what I call one of her episodes. And instead of the ambulance saying, we'll take her to this place, that place, the other place, we got to choose what hospital she went to. So we took her to that hospital. Well, the specialist in post-traumatic stress disorder, yeah, and Alzheimer's doctor and so forth right there, and they found out that she no more had Alzheimer's than I have. She had post-traumatic stress disorder from when she was sexually abused as a child. And it was just starting to show itself now. So, well, make a long story short, we had some real good counseling, but they had, because they could only do it for 9 months or whatever, 10 months, whatever, it ended. And so now we're looking at some other counseling, but we're on a wait list for that counseling. How long is the wait list? Well, I don't know. We went on it about 2015 or so, and I'm hoping, I'm thinking, I'm going to ask this person that I know if she will take it on. I know it's bad because I know her personally, and it's sort of, well, she might say, well, it violates my confidentiality or whatever. Okay, well, if she does, she does. Anyhow.
It sort of speaks to the increasing complication of needs, right? And
yeah.
Right? Really increased complication of needs, and you're both maintaining, living independently in the community, and staying connected with your co-op.
Well, I think if Rita didn't have her day program, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I would be absolutely bonkers. Because that's a good break for me.
Has anybody here ever supported somebody who's aging, or you've seen this happen where suddenly there's a diagnosis of dementia and they know it's complicated mental health, right? People are nodding, yeah. So it's very complicated, and Peter's the support person, right? But
Yeah.
they are very cute together. You guys are pretty amazing together too, still. It's a lot of fun hanging out with them. I would highly recommend a visit to their place for dinner.
So we had a glass of wine. I had the wine. Real good. I should DSTO. And this was last Wednesday at the bar, and had fun.
So this is a great thing, continuing to get out. So again, the key is upholding people's right to self-determination, no matter how hard it is, and we're talking about the challenges of doing this, right? We have a couple minutes left before Peter's going to go. You have all of this. I want everyone to know that there's a number of advocacy bodies for the elderly, the senior secretariat, if people aren't familiar. Has anybody dealt with the senior secretariat? There's a number of places you can call, you can get support, advocacy. So if you're having issues with long-term care, anything at all, great advocacy body. And then there's this is the Legal Aid Clinic, which specializes in advocacy for the elderly, for low-income senior citizens. And if you look down at the bottom, if you look down at the bottom, that link there has probably 20 or 30 documents all on advanced care planning, the law, Healthcare Consent Act, Substitute Decision Makers Act, a whack of fantastic resources for helping plan. The Arch Alert, want to just draw your attention, it's also in your package. If anybody's interested in getting more updates and staying connected with the advocacy work that Arch is doing. For instance, we're talking about aging. People probably know of the class actions that happen with pneumonia. I know Wilma's here, who talked about supporting somebody who used their settlement for their funeral planning, right? Their settlement from the institution. And so there's more class actions that are coming up at the other institutions. Well, Peter's going to be very involved in that in Winnipeg in a couple hours.
No, I'll be in my briefcase here. I actually got documentation about class action for the other institutions.
Exactly. So that's coming up. So you'll see that Arch Alert. Arch is involved in helping with the plain language translation for the materials. So before we go, we have a cab coming for Peter, right? Yep. So.
I'm going to say it maybe here any minute now. So.
Okay, fantastic.
Some quick questions, and then we'll take a break as well. But
great. Okay, so let's open up the floor. Anything at all you want to ask Peter about his experiences? He's people call him the godfather of advocacy, and this is kind of neat that he's now doing.
Sue, I'll add that we'll have you back after break. So I would say specific to Peter for the time constraint, and then we can have more time with Sue after.
So any comments, questions, anything about Peter's life? And I hope people know this is also the person who, the Eve case, we talked about it when I was here a couple of weeks ago. The Eve case, which was the case that went to the Supreme Court of Canada in the 70s. Yeah?
So, yeah.
Do you want to talk about that?
78 or 79. No, I'm talking about the Eve case. Well, okay, it's unusual for a guy to be involved in sterilization of a person who was living. She was woman. I'm going way back. Give you background. She was a woman living in Prince Edward Island who was seen holding hands with another gentleman in the workshop, and they were talking getting married. Well, mother said, no, you got to be sterilized. Well, they went to some court personally, and there were 3 judges, and they said, no, she should have a hysterectomy. So then I came back to, I'm saying it right. Then I came back to with the Consumer Advisory Committee at that time.
Can I go quick, because Megan and Jason are giving us the thumbs up, the taxis here.
Oh boy.
Do you want me to help put in a nutshell?
Yeah.
It's in the film. There's a film on the history of People First of Ontario in which Peter is featured. That Peter supported this woman to advocate for herself not to be sterilized against her wishes. And it went all the way up to the Supreme Court of Canada. And it was the first time that someone with an intellectual disability fought all the way to the Supreme Court. Pardon me?
The only first time people who have been able to have an intellectual disability and have been in the Supreme Court of Canada.
So it got overruled, and she did not have to get a hysterectomy. So,
and sterilization.
Sterilization. And just, I said to Peter, wow, as a man, that was so important. Peter said, everybody's got rights, doesn't matter who they are. So, do any closing?
I'm sorry, I got it all.
So I'm just here to close. It really would be better to have you ask Peter questions. But are there any questions about anything that we talked about? I know Angie, a little bit later, is going to be talking more about healthcare, and she can go in and answer some more questions about healthcare issues for the people who are aging. But are there any questions? You've got our contact information, but there's a question here. So there's somebody with a question there, so we can discuss a little bit more before we go.
My question is around substitute decision makers. Can you talk a little bit about why you have those? Who, could it be anybody? I'm just curious about that stuff.
Excellent, and I just took my slides down. But you have in your package, does everybody see that? I mean, the font might be like 6. So you might not be able to read it because there's so many words on it. But does everybody see that tree, that hierarchy of substitute decision? But so substitute decision maker, so again, there's an act. There's a law that talks about how substitute decision makers get determined. And that tree is what happens. So if you happen to be incapable, like I said, the woman who was in long-term care, who had fallen, and she was disoriented, she had been living by herself, and when she landed in hospital, and so she was tended to all by herself in hospital, and then the hospital realized she's not capable of making decisions right now, she's experiencing delirium. So what they did was they went through that hierarchy, and the first person going down that list, who was a family member, was this brother. So that's a little tiny bit of an example. But like Peter said, if you can think about who you want to be helping make your decisions down the road, you can determine that. And you have to identify that you don't want it to be a family member. If you want it to be a friend of yours, like Peter's done, he has a circle of friends who are helping make those decisions. So that has to be documented. We don't recommend going out and getting a capacity assessment. Someone was asking me a question just now. People were asking me questions a couple of weeks ago. Once a capacity assessment has been undertaken, very, very difficult to get it reversed. And if the person does want to start making their own decisions again, very difficult to get it reversed. So we don't recommend doing that. The other large piece, we're not really talking about it a lot right now because there's nothing concrete. But the neat thing, I'm a social worker, by the way, and I'm one of the only just pure social workers at Arch. There's a number of people who are lawyers and social workers. But I get to hear about all the law reform. And are people familiar with the idea of supported decision-making? Right, Bonnie and a number of people know about it. There's different laws that exist in British Columbia in which you can have a circle of people who are making decisions for you. It's called supported decision-making. There has been incredible lobbying and law reform that lawyers and organizations are trying to do here in Ontario to change the laws so that we don't have to go through this hierarchy of substitute decision makers, so we don't have to have power of attorneys and capacity assessments undertaken, that we have a circle of people identified who can support a person. But there's a lot of lobbying and law reform that's going on with to change the laws. And we don't know how long that's going to take. Right now there's a group working on changing that, but if it changes at all, it will be a long time. So for now, it's really important to know about capacity. We just keep underlining it. The person has the right to make their own decisions. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to ask about it?
No.
Yeah. This is why I like having one of the lawyers here with me. I learned by osmosis, but I wish I could answer a little bit more, but I'm really giving the main party line of the Arch lawyers, which is just try and put as much power in the person's hands to make decisions. And then James was asking, so how do we do this when somebody doesn't use words to communicate? Right? And it was that same question. It's the same question that we have when we do person-directed planning, when we try and find out what somebody wants for lunch, what somebody wants to do in the community with their lives. Does anybody want to comment? Anybody who does a lot of work with people who don't use words to communicate, who have an intellectual disability? Anybody want to comment on what have you done that's been really creative to help find out their wishes?
Just a plug for ConnectABILity, Jason.
And by the way, remember, and Peter's going to jump in, so remembering. Perfect. So specifically asking about helping the person plan their funeral. Okay, good. So Peter, got that. So I'm just going to add before. So the term accommodation, I think we're all familiar with the term accommodation, where we really want to work as hard as we can with a community of people around a person with an intellectual disability to find out what's important and meaningful to them. Right? And it's our duty to accommodate them, to try and help them communicate what it is they want to communicate. But Petra?
I'm just going to put a plug in for ConnectABILity. I don't know if everybody's aware. There's a person-directed planning page, and on that, RENA got some money, and they got someone to put together a guide for AAC users, alternative and augmentative communication users, to prepare for planning. And it has some really good checklists and stuff of how does the person communicate, etc. And I know in my own experience, we always said, if the person doesn't use words to communicate, get a group of people around them and know them well, etc. And I remember a speech and language pathologist questioning me on that, saying, no, that's not good enough. You have to find a way to get the person's voice out. And I remember planning with V, and even just a yes-no board. And I think that pre-planning is really key, going to CAMH and a social worker having cut stuff out of a magazine and the person that we're planning getting to pick, yes, I want this, I don't want that kind of thing. So I think we need to be creative.
I think if there's not any, are you able to stay for your lunch too?
Unfortunately not, and I'm so disappointed, but it's going to be videotaped and I can watch it later, right?
And also I think if there's questions, again, there's the follow-up, and I know you put that out there. So can I get a big round of applause?